Welcome into another post-game edition of Spits and Suds. I'm Gavin Spittle of 105.3 The Fan, joined by EP Rinkside. He has a great Substack you need to subscribe to called Shap Shots. Also writes for D Magazine. He's our NHL insider. He is Sean Shapiro. Good evening, Sean. Well, nothing changes for the seventh consecutive Game 1 playoff loss by the Stars. In fact, I was looking back. You have to go back to the 2019-2020 season. It was actually Game 1 in the Stanley Cup final in the bubble, the last time the Stars won a Game 1 against Tampa.
And if you want to go even further on that, obviously they did win that game in 20 Game 1 against Tampa. Luckily enough, a game that was won on a Joel Hanley goal of a If you remember the hero of that game. The COVID bubble was weird. Yada yada yada. The last time the Stars won a Game 1 with a live studio audience or fans in the building, we have to go all the way back to Game 1 of the 2019 playoffs against the Nashville Predators, because they lost Game 1 of round 2 that year to St. Louis. So we're now at 8 straight playoffs with fans in the building of the Stars losing Game 1, and that includes road and home. It doesn't matter where the energy's coming from, and it is. It's 5 years since they've won a Game 1 in front of fans.
That's amazing.
It's like.
And that is absolutely amazing. And I guess we can question why. The other stat that sticks out now, 19 consecutive power play kills for the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. They have become a beast shorthanded.
Yeah. It is yeah. And this is one of those games where if the Stars are ever going to win a Game 1, the night you get Connor McDavid gets the double minor 17 seconds into overtime, and then you don't score on that, and then you're still surviving with Jake Ottinger and Chris Tanev combining for a miraculous save on McDavid.
Yeah.
And in that same overtime session, you get pinned in deep in your own zone with Petrovic and Suter and your fourth line, and Edmonton rolls out the big guns for the final 30 seconds, and you crawl and survive, and you're like, okay, they're going to first intermission of overtime. Everything's turning up stars, and then 32 seconds into double overtime, it's over. It's just kind of laughable at this point. I mean, it's like it's one of those things where it's just like it fits so well with you and I have talked so often about why did the Stars start games slow? Well, I haven't figured it out in the entire Jamie Benn era. Well, losing Game 1s has been an entire part of the Jamie Benn era. Like, yeah, I mean, there's just like you can play the hits, right? Last round against Colorado. Last year, you got a 4-goal game from Joe Pavelski, and you lose in Game 1. Like, it is a certifiable highlight reel of how to lose Game 1, and I'm just kind of laughing at it. It's the thing where, and I know the other thing about this, and I've had this comment and statement, and I want to get ahead of this one right now because I know there are some people who listened to Robert and I's preview episode, and they're like, "Oh, you said this series was going to be easy or anything like that." Everything about this game tonight just confirmed everything I've felt about this series. I don't see how the Edmonton Oilers win 3 more of these. Like, I just like if this is the formula for Edmonton winning, because I don't see how Edmonton wins 3 more of these, and it's not trying to use Stars rose-colored glasses or come off overly confident or anything like that. Just the reality is, look what it took for Edmonton to win tonight, And it took essentially it took Connor McDavid having to hero ball them quite a bit. It took it took a couple good bounces this way and that way and everything like that, and it was, I mean, yeah, it was a good game, but nothing about this game says to me, well, now, you know what, I need to retract statements I made the other day. I think I even said it in that podcast the other day where they'll probably lose game one. Like, so it's um it's to me, this is okay. We know this series now is going to go for at least 5 games.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it now.
The one adjustment I would like to see from the Stars standpoint, and I think you are right on, but I did feel as though, I mean, you look at the Dallas goals and where did they come? They came in tight in the dirty area.
Yeah.
I felt as though, and maybe it was Edmonton that did a good job keeping the Stars to the outside, but I just felt as though the Stars in limited action were very effective when they could get inside. I thought Skinner had a lot of clean looks tonight. I thought he played well, obviously, but I thought he had a lot of clean looks. So if there was an adjustment to be made, Sean, I would love to cause a little bit more havoc, which the Stars adjusted against Vegas specifically and really caused some havoc in front of the net. I just felt as though a lot of the stuff was coming from the outside tonight, specifically in overtime on that 4-minute power play. Yep, they hit 2 posts. And that's just, bad luck. But the post can be the goalie's best friend, and sometimes positioning, they know where the post is. But at the same time, I just would love to see some cleaner looks on the inside, gather up some rebounds.
Yeah, and it felt a lot like this to me felt a lot kind of like game 1 and 2 of the Vegas series, a lot, where the Stars, I don't think Vegas was particularly dangerous against Dallas offensively in game 1 and 2 of those series, but Vegas clogged and clogged and kept Dallas outside and basically dictated that. So, give Edmonton credit tonight. Edmonton does.
Yeah.
Edmonton did a good job defensively. They did a good job limiting things. I mean, Edmonton played like it's funny that this went to double overtime. I thought Edmonton played the game. They almost played the game perfectly in the third period to win. The only reason Dallas tied this and forced overtime was the fluky bounce where Jason Robertson throws it and it takes a quick bounce off of Evgeny Dodanov's skate, and I don't think that's intentional, but it's definitely not intentional by Robertson to go for a foot pass off Dodonov. Either way, there's not full intent on that play, and so I thought Edmonton played a game tonight where they deserved to win. They had the lead going into the third period. They took advantage of their opportunities, and they deserve to win. Give the Oilers credit on that. The Edmonton basically tried to do what they did in the third period of Game 7 against Vancouver, but in the third period in Vancouver they had a 3-0 lead, so you could and so it's from a Stars perspective, this was the feeling out, opening sparring, using all the boxing cliches you want. This is round 1 of a title fight, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's when you feel the other guy out, you get an idea, and now you go into game 2 and you adjust and you see what happens. And that's one of the great things about playoff hockey. Now we see how the Stars adjust and move forward. Give Edmonton a ton of credit for what they did on the penalty kill, and give the Stars some blame for what they did on the power play. That is, to me, that's really important here. And also, it's the other thing. My other big takeaway, and then I'm going to let you refocus me to make sure we're going on the right places right now. The other thing that was just interesting tonight too is, I don't know whether it's, and he had the goal at the end on the nice the low to high tip play
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a really pretty goal in overtime. But Connor McDavid doesn't roof that puck with a 5:25 left in the first overtime. He doesn't roof that puck. He gets skated and angled out twice by Esa Lindell. A couple other times he got and I don't know if it's I think the Stars did a really good job on McDavid, but there's also, to me, there's parts where he didn't seem to have the pop, right, that you expect from Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is something that is going to carry over. I don't know if that's a thing that's, hey, you've played a 7-game series, that's an interesting note for me too, where even on a night where he had the game-winning goal and he looked good, but Connor McDavid to me was limited tonight, and I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that's the Stars. There's a couple different ways we can talk about that, but that's another big takeaway for me. Okay, you're the expert here. Get me on track now.
Well,
Bosch tools are built for workers. Bosch's powerful hammer drill has kickback control to help work go more smoothly when you need it. The 2-in-1 impact driver and wrench quickly changes between bits and sockets, so you only need one tool instead of two. And the X-Lock grinder switches wheels up to 5 times faster than standard grinders when you need to change tasks in a hurry. Bosch tools take care of the job and you. Bosch tools, what hard workers deserve. Learn more at BoschTools.com.
When you're worried about underarm sweat and odor, it can be distracting. Like this. Or this. Or even this. It's time to silence those distractions with a spray of powerful Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant. Featuring our 72-hour protection and soothing 1/4 moisturizing cream. Because when you forget about your underarms, you can focus on being unforgettable. Dove Men. Forgettable underarms, unforgettable you.
I will say, Sean, before we came on, he was interviewed post-game by TNT, and he started blaming himself for not ending the game and not putting that puck higher. He said, I should have put that in. He's like, I'm the reason that game should have been over by then. He was really hard on himself. Yeah. And in typical Connor McDavid captain form, I mean, he hailed Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, saying he could do everything. And, Bouchard he was high on, and obviously they asked him about Hyman as well. And he loves Hyman, and he actually talked about Hyman, how Hyman goes in so hard and deep on the forecheck, and named a couple of other things. And he said, and I don't do that as well. So I thought it was a really interesting interview because, coming off a game-winning double overtime Western Conference Final victory, and you're hearing Connor McDavid highly critical of himself. So, and I guess that's what makes him great. And I agree. I think for the most point, they kept him quiet. I noticed a lot of TANF on him. It was, I think the Stars played well. I just would like to see just a few adjustments. And, because I think they're playing a beatable goalie that is playing really well, and good for him. But at the same time, and we could talk about Jake Ottinger. I thought Jake Ottinger played really well tonight too. So it's just one of those game one things. So I can't, it would be awful. And I say this to you Stars fans, you cannot hit the panic button after game one with this team, especially because the odds are, I mean, if you were betting in Vegas, why would you bet the Stars in this game, Sean?
Yeah. I mean, you should always bet Dallas to lose game one. You should just always.
Yeah.
Always bet against Dallas in game one. That's the play. So.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to, we got several comments.
Yeah.
Guy says, Wyatt Johnston has been quiet lately. When do you change up his line? When Rope comes back, do we bring back the Avengers line? Am I in panic mode? He never looked fast, but he looks insanely slow. I think that is a panic mode, my friend.
I disagree about Wyatt Johnston being not good or whatever. I think tonight, I thought the entire Stars team, you could have seen better things out of everybody and all of that, but I wouldn't put you're severely panicking about if you're worrying about Wyatt Johnston right now. It's also a testament to what Wyatt Johnston has become, because a typical 21-year-old doesn't even get onto most people's radar to panic. That's just a fact of where he is right now. So
Yeah, absolutely. JW Streifel says, please help us understand how this team is so average at home. Also thought our fourth line would have a bigger advantage.
Well, let's look at the numbers on something real quick here, because tonight, where is it? Hold on. I thought here, let's see. Stars fourth. I mean, the Stars' fourth line went up tonight. The Steele, Fox, Smith line. They had. Yeah, I mean they didn't have a great night possession wise and all of that, but I don't think they really had. Like, you look at the numbers and you look at the game, and I think they did spend a lot of time in the defensive zone. They also started in the defensive zone a lot too.
Yeah.
They didn't have a single offensive zone face-off, so you have to account for what their role is. So I don't really worry too much about the kind of fourth line there. I think it was fine. What was the first? It was there's best with the fourth line. What was the other question? I got caught up going down the fourth line part of it.
Just so average at home, and here's my opinion quickly, Sean, is that I don't know. I mean, I thought this game had a big lull in it as far as, Stars excitement goes, but I will say this: when that barn is loud, which we saw in overtime, which we saw late in the third period, it's terrific. But compare that to Edmonton in a few days. I just thought, it was a quiet place tonight. And I'm not saying that to criticize. I just have to say it because we're here to say it like it is. And the team, to me, played fine, but, there wasn't necessarily that burst out of your seat, let's go and go crazy and everything like that. There just wasn't that in this game. It was a well-played hockey game by both sides, but it was great when Sagan scored that goal that the crowd erupted and everyone was on their feet from that point.
You know what was also weird about tonight? And it's just an energy thing, and did you ever notice once in this game a little shove, a cross check after the whistle? This was the cleanest post-whistle playoff game I think I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Like,
agree.
this was, like, and I'm not I don't think it's not the type of thing where it's like, that's, like, I think you quote unquote need that to win or whatever. I don't think, but it was just a very weird thing. Like especially after watching Florida and New York last night, where every single whistle you basically needed, the linesman basically had to separate guys every single whistle. And you watch tonight, and now maybe it's you build into a series, and these teams, I don't know, and there's and one team's rested, one team's tired, and they're not really, there's no animosity built up yet, but it was just a weird vibe like that. And then the kind of same thing kind of attaches to the first period too, where there's this, like, yes, it was a kind of feeling out part of the first period for both teams, but just neither team seemed ready to start the hockey game. Like, there was a couple guys, like Dodonov had a nice chance in the first period. But, like, neither team really seemed ready to start the hockey game in the first period. So overall, it was just kind of a weird mismatch of a night and all of that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Greg Lunez, outside of overtime in Game 6, Joe Pavelski has been the worst player on the ice. Sad watching a guy do so much for this franchise and in his career perform like this, but the numbers and eye tests say he has killed every line he plays on. What will it take to scratch him?
I mean, no, I'm not scratching Joe Pavelski, but that's
not in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, not at this point.
No, and he's not like the whole. He's killed every line he's played on. I mean, he was good in overtime of Game 6. Let's be clear. That was the last game. He was. I think there's a bit of a overly harsh look at. It's overly harsh look at tonight's game. I don't think Joe Pavelski was bad tonight. I mean, let's take a look at his line, right? His line when he was on the ice, they had a 6-4 edge in let's see. High danger chances were about even. They only had one rush attempt against. I mean, they weren't great, but they weren't bad. And
right.
I mean, like, that's to me. If you want to go and call him the worst star in the game, okay, we can have that discussion about the forwards, and we can go through that and everything. But I don't see the value in taking him out right now. That's not something like, even like, I'm willing to at least humor the question, right? You're like, oh, we'll take him out, scratch him. Like, okay, I'm at least willing. Like, okay. I think too often we go down this line of, it's just like when people say like, oh, I want to fire a coach or something like that. The next question should be, okay, well, who's your replacement? And you're telling me it's Ty Dellandrea going to be better in Joe Pavelski's role? No.
Right.
Let's see. You're not going to get, I mean, Roope Hintz is not healthy right now. Maverick Bourque has never played an NHL playoff game, and Maverick Bourque isn't going to play the role Joe Pavelski plays in the bumper spot. Like,
right.
It's I am willing to humor the question. I'm like, fine, if you think he was the worst player, fine, I'm okay with you saying that. Maybe he was. I'd have to go through and break down every single player's game to say that. But you say he needs to be scratched. I disagree with that heavily. And I think there's a team dynamic to him. We see how Pete DeBoer has this entire team buying in right now on everything, that I don't think that's the right move. Call me old-fashioned, but that's kind of my view on that one.
No, I agree. We're in the Western Conference Finals, and I think, you've had Joe Pavelski in every single game, and you should continue to have Joe Pavelski in every single game at this point. Brian Tatum says, I'd rather have a coach that wins Game 7s than Game 1s.
That's fair.
Interesting. Yeah, it's fair.
No one's ever lost a series in Game 1.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let me try to do this correctly, Sean. Raphael Iberg, Vous bleu gratuit.
Okay.
Thanks for the pod. Listening in from Switzerland.
Oh, nice.
Sean, we add Switzerland
to
the list. We have Canada, Switzerland, Italy, and Australia. Add that to the cork board. Absolutely. Good. He says, could I possibly be one of the only people who's happy about the usually late scheduling? I've seen a lot of OTs, not even that early in the morning here. So is the Stars losing Game 1 good news and just part of their usual script? Absolutely. It's part of the script. There's no doubt about that. As far as late scheduling, I mean, I think Mr. Shapiro and I thought, you know what, we'll have this pod done and we'll be in sleep right now, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
But for Switzerland time zone purposes and for Italy, where Flo We is purposes, the late starts are better. Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's you wake up and you're having your morning coffee with it. So super early morning coffee, but
right. Absolutely. Come on, Belgium, step up and grab me a Spits and Suds listener. This is ridiculous. We need all of Europe. Millsy at Newey fan, based here in DFW. Jake Ottinger was so good tonight. 0 for 5 on the power play is brutal. I miss healthy Roope. That is a good point, Sean. The Stars playing without Roope Hintz. You've pointed out, and I love this point, that I think Roope Hintz can thrive in a series like this. And I think from everything I've heard, he is close.
I hope so. I mean, it's playoff. That's the thing where it's like, I don't think Pete DeBoer is much of a. I actually don't think Pete DeBoer overly plays games with guys' status. I don't. There's some coaches who do. I don't think Pete DeBoer is, but I do think. Like it is at the same time, it's hard to, when you say close and day to day, when the last guy to be day to day was Yanni Hakanpää, and he's been out for 70 days now, and it's never really been cleared up on that and everything. So I do think Hintz, I would like to think Hintz is back sooner than later, but I need to see him taking warm-ups for a game before I think about him at all as a factor in this series. Is kind of my go-to.
Absolutely. Matthew Martin, has a team ever won the Stanley Cup losing every game won? Oof.
It's a great trivia question, and
it is.
It's a great trivia question. I don't know. We'll have to email the stats, NHL stats and info people, to see if we can find something on that. But.
Yes. Thank you, Sean, for that. Thank you for not assigning that to me. I appreciate that. And by the way, and it's still fresh, Sean Shapiro and Robert Tiffin did an awesome job on Wednesday previewing this series. So kudos to those guys. I was out of town on business, and they stepped up, stick tap to Mr. Tiffin and Mr. Shapiro on that. Ron Harrell says, despite the loss, Ottinger should be player of the game. 2 amazing saves. I thought Jake was real solid tonight. I guess the question one, Sean, as a current recreational goalie, give me your thoughts on the one that slipped through the pads that made it 2-0.
Yeah, the Hyman goal, right?
The Hyman, yeah.
So there's 2 key elements to that play that I take a look at that are kind of that you pick up on when you watch it closely. So for one, it's Lindell. At first glance, it looks like Lindell just overcommits, right? At first glance, it looks like Lindell overcommits and leaves it on that. When you go back and watch the video on the path Lindell takes, Lindell is basically going through the top of the crease across the front of Ottinger's body, and their feet actually clip. So Lindell's Ottinger's left leg is clipped by Lindell's, I believe it's Lindell's trailing leg, his right leg, as he comes through. To avoid a full-on collision with each other, takes Lindell's path slightly off, so Lindell is off balance. Because his own defenseman is crossing in front of him, and Zach Hyman has the puck in a shooting position, and his eyes are taken away, Ottinger at that spot has to drop into a butterfly. Has to drop into the butterfly in case Hyman shoots right then, because he's not able to read that puck directly. You have to. That's the play there, because you have to play the percentages there. So Hyman doesn't shoot there. It's like, this is a great play by Zach Hyman. Let's give Zach Hyman a ton of credit on this play. So this is a great play by Zach Hyman, where the goalie's forced into the early butterfly. Instead of shooting, Hyman carries it back, starts to carry to push, looking like he's going to push around Ottinger's left pad. To make that save with the route Hyman is taking, Ottinger has to push right to left. As he pushes right to left, his legs have to open for the push. There is no way for him not to open his legs on the push across there. So essentially Hyman's in a spot as a player where you just basically make your move there, and you react to what the goalie does, and he made the right play. A lot of players, and this is the reason Zach Hyman's a 54 goal scorer this season. People like, oh, well, it's easy to play with McDavid. No, these are the little things that make Zach Hyman a 50 goal scorer. A lot of those players will just try to keep pushing that play to beat the goalie around the pad. And that's where Ottinger's push still comes in. He's able to make the left pad save, maybe the stretch out. Hyman cutting back against the grain is like the running back on the draw play, getting it and then cutting back as things open up. So I actually don't have as much problem. I really don't have problem with Jake Ottinger on that play. I think as a goalie, you have to commit one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so he's either gets burned by Zach Hyman wrapping it around his left leg, or he makes the save because Hyman goes and he pushes that way, or you kind of have that opening. So, 5-hole it sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap all the time, and there's a lot of times the 5-hole is not it's not great, but it's not as simple as sometimes people be like, oh, you have to save every shot 5-hole. I think during earlier in the playoffs, Jake Allen was on one of the Sportsnet panels. He did a really nice job talking about how, as goalies, you kind of talk about the triangle. One of the hardest spots to stop a shot is actually between the legs. It's the kind of the triangle for the goalie, and it's not as simple as people think. It's like, oh well, it's 5-hole. Every shot there should be stopped. And so this to me, this isn't on Jake Ottinger. It's a great play by Zach Hyman. It's an unfortunate occurrence of events, and honestly, all 4 goals tonight, before the overtime goal by McDavid, just ugly goals in some way or the other. All 4 goals, both for Edmonton, both for Dallas in regulation, are featured either a colossal mistake by the defenseman. Like, look at Sagan's first goal, right? That's just a complete baffling poor puck decision by Edmonton's defense there. You have the complete kind of lucky bounce on the Dallas second goal to tie it up. You have this goal, you get the weird Tanev plays it perfectly, and then one misstep by S. Lindell leads to this, and the other goal too. Like, you take a look at the shot that led to the Kulak shot that led to Draisaitl's goal in the first period. That's a terrible shot choice. Like, that's not a good shot choice. There's 4 Stars players fronting him. Ottinger's eyes are clean on him perfectly, and it just hits a weird deflection off Lindell. No pretty goals until obviously the game winner, which was very pretty. It's just that's what the nature of it was tonight. Like, I thought both goalies played really well tonight.
Yeah. There is high value, and I recall Andrew Berkshire during the season criticizing Zach Hyman, and I'm not even going to get into what he said, but he also talked about, the scrapping, gets all his goals in front of the net. 13 games played in these playoffs, Sean, 12 goals, 15 points overall, a +8 on the ice, very valuable to this team.
Yeah.
It's just, he's a really good player. And he's found, and I don't even want to call it a niche because that's not fair, because Connor McDavid loves him. It's just one of those things where he knows where to be at the right time, and it takes effort and skill to be in front of the net and be in those places. And that goal tonight was effort and skill personified. So
it's the type of goal that one of the great things about what Wyatt Johnston has become for the Stars is he gets to the right places at the right time.
Yeah.
Wyatt Johnston doesn't burn you or doesn't do these things that people are like, so why, like, there's hockey IQ and vision and reading the play. That is a talent. Even if we don't see the legs churning or whatever, the way we kind of want to see evidence of physical exertion or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Ken Jr. asked, the absence of Hintz in this game really affected zone entry. Does him possibly returning for game 2 help to open up the ice for Dallas? I would say anytime Robe Hintz is in, it's going to help.
Yeah, I mean, it would help. It's also, what is the nature of the injury too? Of, like, we all believe it's a wrist. We all saw the play where he gets cross-checked by McKinnon in the last round. So what is it? What is Rope Hintz when he comes back is also a fascinating question. I don't know the answer to that. That's if I knew the answer, I'd tell you. But that is that's a fascinating question with this too.
Ah yes, the magnificent Trolley Sourbright Crawler, also known as Trollicus brightolus. The worm's captivating neon colour makes it an easy gummy prey.
Trolley!
It's a surprisingly sour, invitingly chewy, staggeringly snackable species unlike anything else found on this planet.
Eat me!
Delicious. Visit Trolley.com to shop now.
Trolley, eat me!
Today's specials are brought to you by Fancy Feast. From impeccable pâtés to silky broths to chef-inspired creations, a memorable mealtime experience is always on the menu for your cat. Learn more at fancyfeast.com.
Together we're as happy as can be.
It's hard not to add a side of hot, crispy hash browns to your favorite McDonald's breakfast. It's even harder not to eat said hash browns before you get home. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Our friend Jordan, above the border in Canada, the loss doesn't fall on a single person, but 63 had a lot of chances tonight, resulting in nothing. Hopefully, Rope is back soon. Disappointing night for sure. Yeah, but I mean, the fact that I'll say this, Jordan, 63 did have chances, and some great saves were made, but I will say he was in the right place. Even if you, like as Sean pointed out, even if it wasn't intentional that the puck ended up on Sagan's stick for the tie for the game tying goal, the fact that Dodonov was not only was he in front of the net, but he had two Oilers players surrounding him, which opened up Sagan. So I thought that was a really strong play by Dodonov.
Yeah, and we're talking about a guy that actually finishes his chances from time to time. We're not talking. Yeah. I mean, to me, the biggest depth forward red flag from this game of someone not finishing is, I mean, if you're Edmonton, you won this game and you're happy on the plane, but if you're Chris Knobloch and you're looking at the video tomorrow, how many times is Warren Foegele going to get a bobbled puck from Miro Heiskanen in a breakaway and then just do absolutely nothing with it?
Yeah.
Right? Like that to me in the first period was Edmonton ended up winning, but that's one of those where that would have been, if Edmonton loses this game, that's a huge missed opportunity where Foegele doesn't even really test Ottinger on a breakaway after Heiskanen just coughed the puck up in one of his rare in a rare bad moment.
Chris Barnard, it's game one, so Dallas doesn't usually win these in the Pete DeBoer era. Well,
it's not a Pete DeBoer thing.
It's not a Pete DeBoer thing. It's a Pete DeBoer / Rick Bowness / Jim Montgomery, maybe. Monty? Yeah.
Jim Montgomery was the last. I mean, Rick Bowness technically won game one in the bubble. Jim Montgomery won game one in Nashville, but this has been I sometimes think with the Stars, the slow series starts, what's the common trend? It's been Jamie Benn's team.
No, you're right.
Heck,
Sean, they didn't even win game one of the seeding tournament inside the bubble.
No, they didn't. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. It says Chris also goes on to say this team is making extra passes like they're facing elite goaltending. Good tonight, but Skinner fights the puck. Lunging and punching at pucks with his blocker. This means his angles are off. Shoot. I will say, Sean, and you know I'm a big proponent of that 30 shots on net. They got past it based on overtime, but I do think they have to pepper Skinner. I kind of agree with Chris. I think there were some passes at times that went the other way that you just like, oh, man, just put it on net. Hopefully get a rebound.
Yeah, I also think tonight, there is... Where was it? I want to see something here. I had chances at around the chances in the game tonight, and I'm not talking about shots. I'm talking about chances. I had them right around. I'll have to double check my numbers on it, but I had them right around 24 or 25 for Edmonton and 23 for Dallas in the game tonight. And I'm not counting. I'm not counting shots. It's very nebulous. Not a big deal. Just what I count as a quote unquote scoring chance. And so, I kind of look at it more so that way, where you got some of the volume, but you need to use some of that to find more of those other things. You need to be able to create some more dangerous chances. And I think there was times where Dallas they kind of got caught up where, like, in the first period, I thought there was a couple times they could have created more quality. And then there was times in the second period and third period where, you know what, some quantity probably, maybe they overly corrected from the first period, and they needed some more quantity on there. So yeah, I mean, I get what everyone's saying. I also think that there comes a time when you just have to, like, you have to find a way to create that space as well, where so those long range shots actually do some things. So
Sports by K-Twiz all day. Can you address the power play issues that Dallas is going through, Gavin? Well, thank you for asking me, but I will defer to my power play expert, NHL insider Sean Shapiro. I will say this, Sean, and this is my answer to K-Twiz. I felt as though the power play was stagnant at times, in that I love power play that has a lot of movement, specifically on that 4 minute, while they got some good shots on net, hit 2 posts. I think it was 5 shots total during that 4 minute span. I just felt as though it kind of lacked movement. I just felt as though it was one person looking, and it just, I just felt as though it was kind of standing around in your positions at times, and I defer to you.
Well, one of the things that it's missing, and this actually is a big Rope Hintz related thing. If you look at the Stars power play, to me works really well when Jason Robertson is kind of can either be a downhill option, kind of skating down that flank and shooting, or passing across, and he can kind of be those options. He's more dangerous when you actually have another downhill option in Rope Hintz. And without Hintz, you kind of, and without Hintz, and you're kind of rolling a power play where it becomes much more of a 2-man game, really, between Heiskanen and Robertson, and then kind of the other 3 just kind of floating around, kind of waiting to get involved. I think when Hintz is involved on the power play, you see more overall movement. You see more, it becomes, instead of a 2-man game, it becomes a 3-man game with 2 puck retrievers. And I think that's a thing the Stars need to figure out. I wonder, I know why Johnston played 608 on the power play tonight, right? I wonder if at some point you have the chat, just as Pete DeBoer, if you're Pete DeBoer, you just kind of have a bit of the chat of, like, you know what? Like, I want you to demand the puck some more here. You've earned that spot. Like, that's you've earned the spot. Like, you demand the puck more on this power play. Like, take some of that. So maybe that's something there, because I think you have to look at solutions for who's healthy right now, and then whenever Rope Hintz is healthy, you're like, okay, that's gravy. You have to solve yourself before hoping for the injury to solve you.
Let's go to Australia and our friend Alan Nans. It's really a depressing way to keep starting these series. Who would have thought, and I'm going to pronounce this the way their names are, and there was actually a person wearing a jersey tonight, Beneguin. So it's Benneguin. So basically Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin combined would be our savior 2 years ago and now. And he also adds, I thought you'd like the kangaroos in my dad's backyard. Sean, you were on this tweet, and there were a bunch of kangaroos pictured.
Ooh, nice.
Which, by the way, a pack of kangaroos is called a mob.
I did know that, actually. I wouldn't have been able to answer the trivia question, but now that you said it out loud, I did know that. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of depressing. It would be nice if your team was up game 1 like the Mavs are against Minnesota. The silver lining, so to speak, is that this team's resilience. And if you're in that room, panic is not setting in. A, it went to overtime. and B, you played well in overtime. You played pretty good overall. And as Sean pointed out to start this, if this is all that Edmonton has got, you are the better team in this series, and you should still win. So I think those are positive notes.
I'm also a big believer that I don't think momentum exists in hockey from game to game. And I know people are going to be like, oh, you get on a run and like I think momentum exists within a game, but every single playoff game starts anew and starts over. Like I think that's I always remember this example that I got from Ben Lovejoy when he played with the Stars. He was kind of in Ben Lovejoy won a Stanley Cup with the Penguins, I think, yeah. And I remember him telling me, he's like, when you're in the playoffs, every single win, no matter what the score of the series, you feel like you're the top of the world. You feel like you've beaten everything. There's just everything, like it's such an emotional high, winning a playoff game, no matter what game it is. And losing that game is the exact just as hard as it is. It hurts just as like. And he mentioned he's like sometimes in the playoffs, like some people play. There's just as much motivation to get the feeling of winning as there is to avoid the despair of losing. And for that reason, everything just resets, right? Like it's not like, and like that to me is a big thing to take out of this. Like I think this Stars team, one of the reasons they can lose game ones and bounce back is because game one doesn't matter anymore. It ended an hour and a half ago to them. It's over. Like it is. I think that's this team's mentality when it comes to playoff losses. Okay, that's over. We move on. And I think that is a incredibly important quality of a team that potentially can win 8 more games. So that's kind of my thought on it. I hope I answered the question. So
no, I mean, you know what? And you mentioned Ben Lovejoy. Yeah. I was actually a big Ben Lovejoy fan. I thought it was a great acquisition at the time, partly because Pride of Concord, New Hampshire, and Dartmouth. But I always liked Ben Lovejoy's game as a defenseman. I thought he was tough and just an overall good player. All right. Brandon says, I firmly believe the disjointed effort people are pointing out will be resolved in game 2. I think he means crisper passes, but passes. Yeah, he does say passes will be crisper. What do you think of trying to elevate Harley and have Miro play that shutdown on McDavid and Leon that we all know he can? Thomas Harley's interesting, Sean. I don't think he's playing bad, but we're not seeing the same kind of player we saw in the regular season. There have been some turnovers. I'm not saying he's playing bad, but I would like to see more out of Thomas Harley. Wanted to get your thoughts.
Thomas Harley was playing with Miro.
Yeah.
So like he is playing with they're like it's said elevating Harley Harley and Miro are basically having the same minutes right now. They're playing together. So that's I'm kind of lost on the question there. I'm sorry. Because he said he said to elevate Harley so Miro doesn't have to play. But they're on the same pair.
Right. Okay. Brewboy 23. I've been really impressed with the Oiler PK. It's so loud in here. Good. That's great to hear. It wasn't loud on TV, so it's great to hear that it was loud in the bar.
Because we've opened this can of worms before. I think the audio levels were weird.
You're probably right.
I think the audio levels were weird on the broadcast tonight. I don't know if it's it seemed to me that the announcer was a little bit, and I know Kenny Albert and Eddie Olczyk are in the building. I know they're there, but it almost sounded a little bit like they were calling it, like they sounded farther back or whatever. So I don't know if I don't know if there was less on the crowd mics or the FX or whatever, but there was something off about the audio on the television tonight. So
yeah, absolutely. Aaron Thacker, when it went to overtime, so much for the early start. That's true. Adam Deacon across the pond in England says Stars looked well off the pace tonight. Gavin, really not impressed with their inability to keep the puck. Just seemed disjointed a little bit. How I'm feeling right now. Well, Adam, it's just one game. And my friend, hold out hope. They might even go down 2 games, and I would still say hold out hope. This team's resilient, has really impressed me. Kenny Howard, really interesting question, Sean. Please help me understand how the high sticking got called in overtime on McDavid. They didn't see it and call it when it happened. How can they call that on review? If I'm an Edmonton fan, I'm livid. Interesting.
If you don't like the rule, that's okay. Because this is one of those classic, like, if you dislike the rule, that's fine. But because blood was drawn, you're allowed to review it. That's kind of the play. High sticks are reviewable, and so it is a that one is. I'm fine if someone doesn't like the rule. Hey, the official should call it in the moment. That's fine. But then you have to talk about changing the rule, not changing the call. Like, the call was the right one for the rule book.
Yeah. I did kind of get a chuckle, Sean, that Duchesne was going to get patched up and then had to come back out and re-show and say, look, guys. And I think they're like, yeah, we saw it. We got it.
Well, the thing that I was actually impressed with was the officials made that call, because you could have easily let it go. That's something where one of the, hey, I'm not going to impact the game moments of I'm not going to impact the game. And by not making that call, you're impacting the game. So I give the officials credit, actually, for making the right call on that one.
Yeah. Rayanne Walters says, seems like tonight the ice is suffering with the Mavs still playing. Also, lots of bouncing uncontrolled pucks. Now, it has been a humid day in Dallas, and we are nearing June, Sean. I mean, it's not the best ice surface, and they will play on one of the tops in Edmonton in, later this week. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best ice surface, but
I also have a hard time with. I used to be, and this is an opinion in my life that's changed. I used to prescribe more to the bad ice as a factor in the NHL and everything like that, but every single time I've ever, maybe not every time, but like in the NHL, I have a hard time remembering right now. Anytime I've asked guys about the ice conditions and it's looked awful, and the players have said, no, it really wasn't that bad. So I have a hard time buying ice conditions. I think ice conditions is one of those things that we just kind of, we try to create an answer for a story that's not really there. Like,
right.
Like that's what I think ice conditions often are. There are some really bad ice surfaces in the minor leagues. I've seen really bad ice surfaces in the minor leagues. But in the NHL, I don't think it has nearly the impact that we and I think TV broadcasts talk about it too often too. Like, I think it's one of those things that kind of just like naturally became a bigger deal when it's not actually that big of a deal. The worst NHL ice is much better than the bad ice. Like, you're probably playing on a bad ice in your beer league game and it's awful, but the worst NHL ice is a million times better than bad beer league ice, than good beer league ice.
Yeah. Speaking of beer leagues, Oleg says, is Marchment the worst skater in the league? He looks like a bender from my over 35 league on Monday nights. I mean, I don't think Marchment's that bad of a skater.
He's just not a good technically sound skater.
Yeah.
Like, he gets there, he moves. I mean, he's just like Jason Robertson's not a pretty skater, but he gets the job done. So,
and that's why he dropped down in the draft, right?
Yeah.
It was partly because of skating.
Yeah.
Tyler King, do we need to be more intentional about matching Miro Harley into McDavid? Feels like we need to match their speed a bit more than Tanev Lindell. Lindell had that stick chase down on McDavid, though. I thought Tanev Lindell handled McDavid really well tonight. I'm surprised people, last goal was terrific. There's nothing you can say about it. It was just terrific.
And I don't think you should match. I don't think you should use one pair against McDavid. I think one of the beauties of having two top pairs that can play against him is, so think about it this way. I'm going to use a baseball analogy for you, Gavin. Actually, no, I'll use a tennis analogy because this is because you have your tennis history, right?
All right, I'm dialed in.
You and I are playing tennis.
Yes.
If I give you the same serve every single time,
Yes.
you're going to learn how to beat me on it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat to one side and expect there and then
So-
pick my line.
If you give McDavid one matchup, he is going to find the flaws. And if you give McDavid one matchup, he is going to do his best to find the flaws in Heiskanen and Harley for over the course of 7 games, or Tanev Lindell. When you give him one problem to solve, he is going to solve that problem quicker. When you give him 2 problems to solve, all of a sudden his game has to be altering and changing too. Like I'm a big believer that when it comes to a lot of the times when teams are like, oh, we're having this one guy go against this one guy, it's because they don't have the depth. They don't have the depth. They don't have anyone else who can do it. The Stars, to me, you have this depth, and I think you roll both your entire top 4 against McDavid. I think you accept you are good enough to do that. And, like, Tanev and Lindell were good tonight. Like, it was...
Yeah.
There was, like, the goals we talked about, some fluky stuff. Credit to Knobloch. I thought it was a really smart decision to load up with McDavid and Draisaitl at the end of the first period, at the start of the second period when you had the so credit to coaching on a situational power load up for that line, but that's like
Allison Taylor always has interesting questions. How specialized are hockey positions? If a team desperately needed a forward D-man mid-game, could the opposite position fill in? It could. It wouldn't be necessarily good, but they certainly could.
I mean,
yeah. And then who did the Stars have that went between wing and defenseman? Was it Physic?
Well,
that-
Mark Pysyk or Mark
Pysyk, yeah. Okay.
Pysyk.
Yeah. Also, and I think a lot of people wonder this question, also, are face-off wins based on who touches the puck first or who gets possession? It's possession.
It's possession, and it's also one of those that's makes it a hard stat to track because it's subjective to the scorer it's subjective to the scorer in the press box to the official scorer. Just like we've talked about this before, but it's just like the concept of a hit, quote unquote, is not a the concept of a hit is the definition is a physical contact that separates a player from a puck. So some of the biggest checks or whatever don't even technically count as hits sometimes, and it's very subjective. So like it's kind of the face-off win once is the only time puck touching matters doesn't matter if who's taking it is in the case of, say, you have an own goal where someone wins a face-off clean back into their own net. It's the person who lost the face-off technically gets credit for the goal. But yeah.
Okay.
That was a tangent. Sorry. So...
Yeah. No. It's okay. Let's just run through these so we can get you to bed. And me too. The Harry Wagstaff, the Donoff to Sagan, intentional or dumb luck. I
don't think it's. I think it's a play where give Donoff some credit for being in the right spot, but it's. But I look at that play and it is such a split-second play where his skate is positioned that way either way. There's not a shift of his weight. There's not anything like that. It's not a redirect on purpose. I think it's just fortunate.
Yeah. Thack Man, why did the Stars start off slow in game ones in the playoffs? We've talked about that, my man. And this is funny. Also have to give Sean a hard time since he said it would be an easy series, LOL.
Okay.
At least he's listening.
People. I said I don't see how Edmonton wins this series. Never did I said multiple times that Edmonton would win games in this series. I just never saw how Edmonton would win more than 2 in this series. So let's be when Edmonton wins a 3rd game in this series, start yelling at me. That's fine. But like just seriously, never did anyone say this would be an easy series. No one ever said that. It was always, at the end of the day, I don't see how Dallas doesn't win. I don't see how Dallas loses 4 games against Edmonton right now. I just don't see how it happens. That is the, and I still don't see how that happens. That's my view on it right now.
Yeah. How away the puck has just never settled. It seems so many bouncing pucks. Aaron's passes sloppy. I mean, there was sloppiness on both sides during the game, I think, at times. Did want to point out as we end tonight, we have a really, really awesome Spits and Suds listener in Mare Bear, and she is at PDX Meredith. She flew in for tonight's game, and she pointed out, need you guys to know that I got into my lift at DFW and my driver was listening to at Sean Shapiro on Spits and Suds. I've arrived in Texas, baby. So I responded. Awesome Lyft driver. Thanks for your support. Hopefully there was an extra tip from Mare Bear as a thank you. And she says, you know it, Gav. Got to show the love for my fellow Spits and Suds fan. So
Gavin,
throw this.
Gavin, do you have an extra job as a Lyft driver?
Right. Yeah. I happened to be driving from the airport today, and I said, you know what? I said, I just flew into town today for those that don't know.
Yeah.
And so I just said, let me pick someone up. I was listening to Sean. I actually was. I was listening to you and Robert this morning and enjoying it thoroughly. So, but I will say this. Whoever this Lyft driver is, okay, reach out to me. We'll do a deal where you can pick me up. We'll just drive around and I'll give you Spits and Suds live. And you'll probably kick me out, but I'll give you a good tip. How's that? Because that's how we roll on Spits and Suds. Sean, you are an absolute beast. For those that have not subscribed to your Substack, which is Shap Shots, and you can get more information at Sean Shapiro. I also want to point out Father's Day is just around the corner, and a couple of Spits and Suds regulars, Sean being one of them, and our friend Stephen Reserve, who has done such a nice job for us in Texas, giving us updates. They have a book that's fresh called We Win Here. And what it does is it tells tales from the history of the Texas Stars to the Dallas Stars, and players interviewed, and it's really cool. The forward is written by Curtis McKenzie. I think it's a really cool Father's Day gift if your pops is a Stars fan. So go buy the book, and you can see on Amazon it gets really good reviews. So kudos to you on that, Sean, and kudos for all that you do for Spits and Suds.
And I have, if you want to I'll add to my little pitch right here if you want here on this. So I have a flight to DFW next Thursday at 6 p.m. I will be at Game 5 in person. So if you buy said book, I will be there in person to sign said book. If so I will. So that is that offer is on the table as well. So,
how long are you staying?
I will be there for Game 5.
All right.
I have to get back on a plane because I will be at the Memorial Cup final later that weekend.
Okay. Wow.
And then I will, first week of June, I will be on a flight to wherever Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final is.
That's badass.
Hopefully
here in DFW.
Hopefully it's in DFW. So
yeah. It's mixed emotions because you want it at home, but then you see the Stars play better on the road, and then you see what Florida did against New York in Game 1. Granted, it's just one game, and you're like, I don't know if I want Florida. So both teams will be tough, but first you got to get by Edmonton. Yes.
I mean, they did just lose. They did just lose tonight, so they have to.
Yep.
Oilers are up 1-0 in the series right now. The Stars are behind, but It's the position they seem to work the best from. So
yeah. Well, thank you, Spits and Suds, listeners and faithful, for all your questions and comments tonight. You guys rock. Really appreciate it. We're having an awesome May, and it's because of you. So keep telling your friends when they ask, like, oh, man, I want some Stars coverage. We're doing it on 105.3 The Fan, and we're also doing it on Spits and Suds. So for Sean Shapiro, I'm Gavin Spittle. We will talk to you later with another edition of Spits and Suds. Get rid of that panic button, move it to the side. We could be 1-1 after Saturday night, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day, everyone.